The studio lights dimmed. Not because someone flicked a switch, because the energy in the room shifted the second Jasmine Crockett sat down. The air was heavy. Tense. MSNBC's anchor barely got through the pleasantries before Jasmine leaned forward, eyes locked on the camera, and asked one question. Why is Pam Bondi still walking around like she didn't coordinate an entire legal PR campaign to shield Epstein's friends? Silence. Then chaos. It was supposed to be a discussion on political strategy. Instead, Jasmine unloaded like she'd been holding back a storm. And she had receipts. She pulled out documents. Color-coded maps showing blatant gerrymandering in swing states. Court filings linking donor networks to Bondi's legal defenses. Redacted, but not enough. The names were readable. Familiar. And then came the hammer, a timeline showing that just weeks before Epstein's second arrest, certain DOJ contacts tied to Bondi requested internal case reviews, quiet ones. You think it's coincidence? She asked, her voice steady but cutting. The host tried to pivot, let's not jump to conclusions. Jasmine cut back. I'm not jumping. I landed. You just didn't expect someone to say it on air. People stopped scrolling. Phones dropped. Hashtags erupted. Pam Bondi, gerrymandering, Epstein. She said them all, together. And she wasn't even close to done. Jasmine didn't blink. Let's talk about democracy, she continued, her tone razor-sharp. Because what Republicans are doing isn't redrawing lines, it's erasing voices. She flipped to another page in the folder. Swing states. District maps. Names like DeSantis, Abbott, Kemp. And then, sliced through with a red marker, minority-heavy districts that had mysteriously vanished under the latest revisions. Texas. Georgia, Florida. You don't have to suppress every voter, just the right ones, Jasmine said, her gaze unwavering. And guess who wrote the playbook? She pointed to a printout of a Fox News segment, Pam Bondi sitting comfortably on a panel, casually defending map changes as rebalancing. You call it rebalancing, Jasmine said. I call it rewriting the electorate to match your donor base. The MSNBC host shifted uncomfortably. But Jasmine wasn't done. You think Bondi's loyalty ends with Trump? She's knee-deep in Epstein's fallout, and still being treated like a legal analyst. You want to talk about grooming? Start with who groomed him for power. The studio went quiet again. The control room panicked. Segment producers started whispering frantically into headsets. But they didn't cut to commercial. Because people weren't turning away. Jasmine had walked into a studio, and turned it into a courtroom. And the jury? The American public, watching live. Jasmine leaned forward, her eyes locking with the camera like it was a witness on the stand. Pam Bondi wasn't just a bystander, she said. She helped build the escape route for the worst people in this country. She held up a highlighted document, an email thread between Bondi and two Florida-based political consultants. One line was circled in red, let's stall the state inquiry until after the election. Optics matter. Stall justice, Jasmine said. To win an election. You want to talk about corruption? Start with the people who know how to manipulate the system, and smile doing it. The camera cut to the MSNBC host, wide-eyed but silent. The control room stayed frozen. And then Jasmine dropped the real grenade. She used state power to kill investigations tied to Jeffrey Epstein's network, Jasmine continued. And now she's on air, lecturing America about law and order like she didn't look the other way while teenage girls were trafficked under her watch. The air got heavier. Even the lights seemed to dim. You want to fix this country? Jasmine asked. Then stop letting the fox guard the henhouse. Because while you're busy defending states' rights, they're carving up democracy like a pie, and feeding it to billionaires. A pause. And then, you think Trump just magically found every legal loophole? No. He had help. From people like Pam. People who know how to twist the law until it screams. No one dared interrupt. She wasn't ranting, she was prosecuting. And America was listening. Jasmine reached beneath her desk and pulled out a binder labeled Red Lines, the map heist. She held it up like a judge about to read a verdict. This is how they steal your vote, she said, flipping to a color-coded map of Texas. Not with guns. Not with threats. With a Sharpie and a spreadsheet. The map was riddled with red lines, districts twisted and carved like jigsaw pieces. Some stretched hundreds of miles to scoop up just the right voters, while others sliced straight through communities of color like they didn't even exist. This isn't politics, Jasmine said. This is precision-engineered exclusion. She pointed to one district. This stretch here? Designed specifically to dilute the black vote in Houston. And who signed off on it? The same consultants Pam Bondi worked with. The same folks who now serve on Trump's shadow campaign board. Michael Steele interrupted softly, but isn't gerrymandering. No, Michael. Don't. Jasmine cut him off without raising her voice. Don't normalize this theft by calling it strategy. It's not clever. It's criminal. The MSNBC audience was glued. Social media was already exploding. #Redlines was trending within minutes. Jasmine wasn't just calling out corruption, she was naming names, showing receipts, and unraveling the machinery live. And here's what scares them most, she added, turning another page. When we know how the machine works, we can break it. Silence again. Not one panelist, not even Steele, spoke. You think Trump's the whole iceberg? Jasmine asked. He's just the tip. Beneath him are decades of rot, and Bondi helped polish it. She pushed the binder forward. So read it. Every American should. Because the map they're drawing isn't just about votes, it's about power. And they're hoping we're too tired, too distracted, or too divided to notice. She looked directly into the lens. But I noticed. And now you have too. Jasmine took a breath, her tone sharpening as the next slide filled the screen behind her. Trump's favorite lie. It showed a quote from one of Trump's speeches, bold, inflammatory, and deeply personal. Jasmine Crockett? I've never even heard of her. Some woke fraud pretending to be a lawyer. She didn't blink, didn't flinch. That's funny, Jasmine said calmly, holding up a framed copy of her bar certification and congressional oath. Because you seem to talk about me an awful lot for someone who claims I don't exist. The audience chuckled nervously, but Jasmine wasn't smiling. I've never met Donald Trump. Never stepped in the same room. And yet he's obsessed, because women like me threaten the empire he built on fear, fraud, and fabrication. She turned to Michael Steele, who looked momentarily stunned. When Trump calls me a woke fraud, he's not insulting me, he's signaling to every old power structure that people like me don't belong. She stepped toward the camera, now speaking directly to America. I'm not the threat, the truth is. And Trump's terrified of what happens when the truth starts trending faster than his lies. She held up another document, a legal memo with redacted names, tied to a real estate deal linked to Epstein's network. His people knew. Pam Bondi knew. And yet they stayed silent. You don't need to meet the man to expose him. You just need to follow the money, the maps, and the silence. Michael tried to interject again, but this time Jasmine just raised a hand. Let me finish, she said, with steel in her voice. You let him talk for 4 years. Let me talk for 5 minutes. The studio went still. Even the air felt like it was holding its breath. I came here to be clear, she said. Trump lies. Pam covers. And the Republican machine redraws your country while you're busy arguing over pronouns. She leaned in one final time. So go ahead, Donald. Say my name again. Because next time, I'll be sitting across from you in court. Jasmine turned the page once more. On screen now, the Epstein escape hatch. The panel visibly shifted. Even Michael Steele's jaw tightened as the photo appeared, Pam Bondi at a gala, laughing beside 2 now convicted Epstein affiliates. You want to talk about law and order? Jasmine said, stepping closer to the camera. Let's talk about who the law protected. She pointed at the image. Pam Bondi blocked Florida investigations into Epstein's network while taking donations from Trump's PAC. Then she turned around and smeared survivors. And when she was done doing that, she joined Trump's legal defense team. That's not just a conflict of interest. That's a cover-up. The crowd in the studio gasped audibly. Michael, uncharacteristically pale, whispered, "That photo, that's verified?" Jasmine nodded, slow and unblinking. Verified. Dated. Cross-referenced. And buried, until now. She flipped again, revealing emails from 2016, Bondi's office declining to pursue charges due to lack of prosecutorial priority. Jasmine read it aloud like a closing argument. Lack of prosecutorial priority. That's how they say, he's too powerful, and we're too scared. She looked out at the audience. But survivors weren't scared. They came forward. They told their stories. And the machine buried them beneath redistricting plans and fake outrage. She pointed to the headline from a conservative tabloid, "Crockett disrespects the flag." "You see what they do?" she said. They change the subject. They distract with patriotism while betraying the very people this flag was supposed to protect. Michael finally spoke, softly, "You're saying this wasn't just incompetence, it was intention." Jasmine turned to him and said coldly, "No, Michael. I'm saying it was a system. One built to shield the powerful, silence the vulnerable, and sell the rest of us a circus." She reached into her stack again, this time holding up a whistleblower affidavit. "Guess what this one says?" That internal pressure came from someone even higher than Bondi. Someone in Trump's inner circle. She let that linger. No names yet. Just tension. This is bigger than Epstein. Bigger than Bondi. Bigger than redistricting. This is about who gets to draw the lines, of justice, of geography, and of morality. And Jasmine Crockett's here to redraw every single one of them. The crowd burst into spontaneous applause. And Jasmine? She didn't smile. She just said, "I'm not done yet." The screen behind Jasmine glowed again, but this time with a map, no names, no cities, just lines. Red lines, jagged and looping like a child had drawn them in anger. "Ladies and gentlemen," Jasmine said, her voice sharp now, "this is how they rig democracy." She tapped a district in Texas that looked like a snake trying to swallow its tail. This is a congressional map. Not drawn by citizens, not drawn for fairness, but drawn by Bondi's legal protégés and Trump's think tank operatives. Lines like these don't just decide elections. They erase voters. Whole communities cut in half, black ones, Latino ones, poor ones. She turned to the camera again. "You think they fear your vote because it's weak? No. They fear it because it's powerful. That's why they slice it up, bury it, dilute it. Gerrymandering is not a mistake, it's a strategy. And it's not new. But with Pam Bondi and her ilk, it became federalized." Michael tried to interject, "But surely redistricting is a bipartisan." "No," Jasmine cut in. "This is not both sides. Democrats aren't perfect, but show me the Democrats using Epstein's lawyers and dark money from Florida sugar barons to erase majority black districts." A silence fell. Jasmine stepped back from the map. "And you know who benefits from this?" she asked. She flipped to a photo of Trump standing on a golf course, flanked by 2 known Epstein associates and a donor flagged by 3 intelligence agencies. This man. This network. This fantasy they sell to rural America that the deep state is after them, when the truth is, they're the ones building it. She held up a check, actual photographic evidence of a donation, $25,000 from the same man who flew Epstein to Palm Beach in 2002. Donated directly to Trump Victory Fund. Hand-delivered to Bondi's office. Michael whispered again, that's real? Jasmine didn't flinch. They called me radical. They said I disrespect the flag. But here's what they really fear, a black woman with receipts. The audience broke into applause again. But this time, even Michael didn't try to hide it. And I haven't even shown you document number 5, Jasmine said, holding up another folder. Someone in the audience shouted, show it. Jasmine grinned, but it wasn't playful. Not yet. First, let's talk about how the same people who redrew maps, killed investigations, and protected predators are now telling you to trust them with the courts, the schools, the elections. She held up a note card. This one? A leaked strategy memo titled, How to Flip State Courts by 2024. Care to guess who authored it? The room fell quiet. Michael's mouth opened, but no words came out. Jasmine looked directly at him. You know who, Michael. She let the silence land. The audience leaned in. Jasmine could feel the gravity of the room shift, like oxygen had been pulled out and truth had taken its place. She held the leaked memo up, then turned to the camera. This was authored by 3 people. One of them is currently serving as a senior advisor to Pam Bondi. One used to work directly under William Barr. And the last one? She paused. He's Trump's pick for the next Supreme Court vacancy if he wins. Gasps. The memo's title was now on the screen, Judicial Engineering, Path to Long-Term Control. It reads like a manual for authoritarianism, Jasmine said. Page 3. Ensure that state courts are seated with ideological loyalists before the 2024 cycle concludes. Page 7. Use school boards and redistricting lawsuits to trigger judicial intervention. Page 12. Target opposition judges using character-based media campaigns. She looked up. They're not just playing hardball. They're dismantling the playing field. Michael leaned forward again, voice now low and cautious. Do you have proof these people coordinated with Trump directly? Jasmine didn't blink. She tapped her tablet, bringing up a calendar entry, screenshot and verified. March 19, 2023. Mar-a-Lago. Private Strategy Dinner. Attendees, Pam Bondi. Jared Kushner. The author of this memo. Oh, and guess who else was present? The screen flashed again. A photo, Trump sitting next to a man who had just been named in a federal ethics complaint, grinning, clinking glasses. I'm not saying they're hiding it, Jasmine said. I'm saying they're daring us to stop them. She took a breath and turned to Michael. And here's the thing. You can tell me I'm being partisan. You can say this is just politics. But when you connect gerrymandering, Epstein cover-ups, dark money, media smears, and judicial manipulation, and the same names keep showing up, at what point do we stop calling it politics and start calling it what it is? Michael's face had tightened. What do you call it then? Jasmine didn't hesitate. Corruption. Coordinated. Cold-blooded. And calculated. The audience clapped again, nervous, overwhelmed. Some began pulling out their phones, taking photos of the screen, zooming in on names. And they've been counting on you not paying attention, Jasmine continued. But they made a mistake. Because I paid attention. And now, so are you. The screen behind her flipped to document 6, a wire transfer. $2.4 million. From an Epstein-linked firm to a PAC that helped redraw maps in 4 key states. Do you see it now? Jasmine said, voice rising. Do you understand why they're terrified of people like me? Because I don't flinch. I don't fold. And I never come without the receipts. Michael didn't respond. He was staring at the screen, silent. Jasmine lowered her voice. You can call it a conspiracy. But I call it a pattern. And the pattern is breaking this country. She stepped back. Should I show you document 7? The room went quiet when Jasmine pulled out the final folder. It wasn't just about gerrymandering anymore. Or Epstein. Or Trump's obsession with her. It was about the whole damn machine, and Pam Bondi's fingerprints were all over it. Jasmine took a breath, slow and controlled. This, she said, holding up the folder, is the memo that ties it all together. Mehdi Hassan leaned forward, almost whispering, "What does it say?" Jasmine didn't answer immediately. She opened the folder, revealing a redacted DOJ internal communication, partially unsealed by a whistleblower. It laid out coordination between Bondi, Trump's legal team, and a private lobbying group that had funneled millions into redistricting PACs, right after Epstein's court files were quietly delayed in federal court. The same week they stalled the Epstein case, Jasmine said, voice sharp, they rerouted funds from dark money groups into red state redistricting strategies. Not a coincidence. Are you saying, Mehdi began. I'm saying they used the DOJ to bury Epstein documents while pumping money into elections they'd already rigged. And then she turned toward the camera. I'm saying this isn't just corruption. This is systemic election engineering, protected by the same people who smeared victims, silenced witnesses, and told you they were protecting your kids from books, while shielding pedophiles with power. The control room feed froze on Jasmine's face. Producers stared, unsure if they were about to be hit with a lawsuit or a historic Emmy. And she wasn't done. They will call this a conspiracy, Jasmine said. They'll say I'm reaching. But ask yourself, why are they trying so hard to shut me up? There was no applause. No cue cards. Just silence. Because the truth doesn't need a soundtrack. And Jasmine Crockett had just ripped the mask off America's most carefully orchestrated deception. And then she smiled. But it wasn't joy, it was war. The backlash came instantly. Within minutes of Jasmine's exposé airing live, phones lit up across D.C. Conservative pundits were fuming on cable news. Legal threats poured into MSNBC. And Pam Bondi? She issued a statement calling Jasmine a dangerous liar, accusing her of weaponizing defamation to score political points. But it was too late. Because the people had already seen the truth. Clips of Jasmine's takedown went viral, flooding TikTok, X, and Instagram. Hashtags like hashtag Jasmine exposed the machine and hashtag Bondi cover-up trended worldwide. Even late-night hosts couldn't ignore it. What had started as an interview had become a reckoning. In a rare move, Adam Schiff tweeted. What Jasmine Crockett did tonight wasn't politics. It was accountability. Jasmine, meanwhile, refused to be intimidated. She walked straight into the Capitol the next morning, head held high, surrounded by reporters. Are you worried about legal consequences, Congresswoman Crockett? One shouted. She turned, smiled, and answered calmly, if speaking the truth brings consequences, maybe the wrong people have been in charge of justice. Later that day, a subpoena was issued, but not for Jasmine. It was for documents tied to a PAC connected to Pam Bondi's old legal team. The story had legs, and Jasmine had forced the system to start walking. Back in her office, Mehdi Hassan sent a short message. They're still stunned. Jasmine replied with one word. Good. Because that's what it takes to shake a nation from its comfort. Truth. Courage. And a voice loud enough to outlast every lie. This wasn't just another interview. It was a demolition. A revelation. Jasmine Crockett didn't whisper the truth, she shouted it. She named names. She pulled receipts. And she lit a fire under a system built on silence. They lied. They manipulated maps. They hid behind Epstein's shadows. But tonight, the machine cracked, and America heard it break. If you thought politics was all theater, Jasmine just tore down the curtain. And what was hiding behind it? A truth so bold, not even Pam Bondi could shut it down. Watch it again. Share it. Because when the machine gets exposed, it either burns, or it buries you. And Jasmine? She came to burn.